Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Dancing Sober podcast. Thank you so much for following us. Don't forget that this is a listener-supported podcast, so please, if you have any spare stuff inside your Venmo, please send us something over at DANCNG SOBR. Inside the Venmo app, open it up and search DANCNG SOBR, just like the podcast is spelled. So that's at DANCNG SOBR inside of Venmo. Send us a couple of bucks, and we appreciate any donation. Don't forget also to visit Espacio 1839. Espacio 1839 is over at 1839 East 1st Street, and their website is espacio1839.com. You can order stuff online. Check out their brand new jackets. They got these jackets that they developed using a sarape, the OG sarapes and a denim jacket, deconstructing both and then building something new. So here's a sample of one of them. Check this out. Check this out. This is pretty fucking cool. So if you have a chance, visit their website or visit their Instagram and get some of their products. They have really cool stuff. Thank you so much to Espacio for letting us do our podcast in here. And here we go again. One more round of Plática with another artist. This week in the studio, we have artist Melly Trochez. Let's get into it. Hey, everybody. Welcome back once again to the Dancing Sober podcast, where we bring you people from the neighborhood to talk about their life and their art. And today in the studio, we have Melly Trochez, Melissa, y Melly Mel, y ¿qué más?
What else? Mel, Troch.
Troch? I like that one.
I hear a lot of different renditions of my name.
Welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
Welcome to Espacio.
Yeah, thank you.
So, I've been following your work for a little bit of a while. I've been keeping up with you as much as I could. And I don't know a lot about you, though. So, which is what we always do in this podcast. So it's like we start way back and we talk a little bit about the artists and how they grew up and what makes Melly Trochez. Melissa Trochez, Melly T.
Okay. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Melly T.
Let's start from like where were you born and where'd you grow up and all that. Tell us about yourself.
Okay. Yes. So I am from the Valley, San Gabriel Valley. I pretty much born and raised there. Let's see. My parents are both immigrants from Honduras, and so when they came here, they didn't really know like what would be suitable place to live. So they kind of just came across the San Gabriel Valley, and that's pretty much where they stayed all their life. And so
that's a good place.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. I like it. They still live there. I still visit. And, that's pretty much where I've...
Were you the first child?
No, I have an older brother and two younger brothers, so there's four of us.
And all you guys were born here or in Honduras?
Everyone was born here, yes.
Okay. And what years-ish? Like, what was your first decade?
My first decade? Yeah. So I'm a child of the 80s, so, like, early 80s. Yeah, and my brother, so we're like 2 years apart. The oldest one is 2 years. I'm 2 years younger than him. The next one is 2 years younger than me. And then the last one is like almost 10 years younger than our last brother. So he's the youngest, yeah.
And growing up, what kind of work did your parents do?
So my dad, he for over 35 years was a truck driver for UPS. And that's pretty much where he retired from. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom, taking care of us, doing that side of the hustle. And, she was very good at it. I think, like, I learned a lot from her just taking care of the home. But my dad is definitely where I got a lot of my respect and, like, awareness of, like, the struggle, of the hustle, of the love for being, just very appreciative of labor and someone that never complained, that worked really hard every day, never had a hard time going to work. I think of like myself or just anyone really from my generation, like work is just like so dreadful sometimes, but like for him, never, not one day complained in a day of his life. So definitely a big influence for me.
That's awesome. Were you all boys, or I mean, one girl, or was it a good mix?
three brothers.
So it was 3 boys and 1 girl. Wow.
Yeah, so kind of a little bit of a tomboy at heart, I think. A little rough sometimes.
Are you the youngest?
No, I have the 2 younger, 2 younger brothers. But when they see us all together, because I'm the shortest out of the 3 of them, the 4 of us. But so I get confused a lot of being the youngest because of my stature, a lot taller than me.
And did they punk you a lot when you were little?
A little bit, mostly Kevin. I would say was always we were just always at it with each other. I think it was just because we loved each other so much. It was just fun to fun. Be at each other's throats, and
it's kind of fun to have a brother or sister like that.
Yeah.
So, like being young and growing up in San Gabriel Valley, like what kind of kid were you? Like, were you the troublemaker, or were you the good kid? Were you the santita doing all your homework and all that good stuff?
I think I didn't have a choice. My parents were extremely strict, and so I kind of had to follow like the straight edge line for so long. I didn't ask questions. I did what I was told. My brothers were a little more. They had more freedom, and I think it speaks to like gender standards in our culture. But,
also the years.
The years too, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely think
maybe
it's more.
Because like some more current. Like young people now don't really raise their kids with the same things, or some, I guess, maybe some do. Yeah. I guess I don't know right now how it is with like new kids growing up right now. That's what I should say. All right.
Yeah, but I am grateful the way I was raised, because I think.
Yeah, of course.
I think I would have been a little. I think it keeps you a little more focused when there's a lot of structure. I think a lot of kids lack structure today. Personally, that's what I think. But yeah, it was a good childhood. I can't complain. They were very good parents, and I feel I got a lot of love, which is like, I think the foundation for any good relationship and good family system.
So going through elementary school, were you already starting to pick up drawing and stuff like that?
A little bit. I think you might have posted this. I saw on social media once that someone posted those stupid competitions that used to go in the mail, where someone would come and like. Did you post that?
I think somebody on another podcast talked about it.
Yeah, I would do those a lot as a kid. I don't even know how they would come to my home, but it was, you copy the figure, you send it out. They were in
almost every magazine.
Maybe that's what it was.
They were in every, those free newspapers that they would throw to your house. Like, you could find them back then, you could find them anywhere.
Anywhere, yes. It
was like junk mail, yeah.
Junk mail, yeah. So from junk mail is where I started learning how to draw. So from that, I started just really taking interest in, drawing and honing in on the skill. And then I think it wasn't till high school that I really tapped into it, because I didn't really identify with my peers.
What kind of stuff did you do when you were young? Like
the characters, the Mickey Mouse. I was really into drawing Mickey for some reason. And then whatever those junk mails would provide for you, like the sample. Yeah. I think it was some kind of weird looking mouse, hybrid.
I remember it was a turtle.
Turtle.
That's what I remember drawing, because I did the same thing too.
It could have been a turtle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember, but yeah, that was where I started. And then I think just trying. My dad was into drawing a little bit, not too much, but he would try to draw things and show me, and I thought it was interesting that he would be a little more creative in that way, because there's not too many in our family line of artists. It's not like a big thing in our lineage, but yeah. So seeing him draw was something I was interested in to watch.
So in high school is when you picked it up a little deeper?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was kind of my sacred little space, where I thought, okay, this is where I can find my community, because I had I had a lot of friends, and it wasn't like I was a loner in any sense, but I kind of preferred to be on my own. And so I didn't really ascribe to the whole popularity thing and just the pressures of high school. So I would go there a lot into the art classes. And then I was kind of pushed to learn really quick, because my freshman year, I transferred from an all-girls school to Arcadia High. And when I went to Arcadia, they asked me what kind of art school or what kind of art class were you taking at the private school. And I wanted to just kind of advance fast. So I said I was in AP art, which was not true. Wow. And so they put me in the highest advanced art class because our transcripts didn't match, so they didn't even know. But so I was forced to like learn right away, and it was a lot of pressure because people were really good in that class with just illustrating. So that's kind of how I picked it up a little quicker. But yeah,
that's cool though. Yeah. So what was it a good teacher too, or was it?
Miss Tuttle, I still remember her. I think I gave her a shout out once in an article that was written a long time ago because I really remember like how she would just really push me to look. Like I would draw something and say, no, you need to go and spend an hour just looking at the object. And so that helped me really understand like how important observation is. And then
tell us a little bit about that, like looking.
Looking? I mean...
learning to see.
Yes. Looking is extremely important, you know, in so many different levels. Like if we're talking about just like in life in general, in you know, in our relationships, anything really, just observation, I think is a very important lesson. So spending time, you know, being mindful and just present with like for example, she sent me to the auto shop at the high school to look at a tire. She said, go study the tire, draw it, and come back. And so I did that, and still she was like, no, this is not what it looks like, go back. And so every time I went back, I was seeing more, noticing more, and then kind of noticing shapes and color. So that's how I just kind of started being more aware of what I was drawing. And then when I went on...
That's a good lesson.
...to the next, when I went to St. Gabriel High, where I graduated from, that is where, that's when I realized this is something I have to do. I don't have a choice. Like, this is all that matters to me at this point. Because I was in dance, and I was...
How did that... Do you remember when that discovery came to you, or why you decided like, oh, this is it?
I think I just didn't understand like the kind of conversations a lot of my peers were having, just very superficial, and you know, talking about other people or like not liking this person and being so into the cliques. And I was just more interested in like, well, what's bigger? What's happening? You know, what is this all about? And I really was more into like soul searching, and I think the art was the only place that allowed me to really dive into that more than anywhere else. Yeah.
At that point, were you, speaking of soul searching, did you like start to like read about religions or spirituality or anything like that? Is there a reason why that happened? Or
yeah, that's really interesting because maybe that's what came right after high school. But because I was raised Christian for most of my childhood till I was about 12, then we were able to like branch away. My mom let us fight the urge to not go anymore. But I think it was until after high school when I graduated when I was really okay, this is my time. This is when I can really like listen to what it is that I need. And that's when I started looking into other philosophies like, you know, Buddhism and like Zen Buddhism. Yeah.
Yeah, and you felt like that was more connected to how you felt?
I think so. I think it made more sense to me versus like the more, you know, Christian landscape.
I kind of went through a period the same way where I wanted to read every Bible or read about every religion, and I picked up the Bhagavad Gita. I picked up a Christian science book. You know, I read a little bit of the Bible, and for some reason, like Buddhism is like what always drew me naturally without like being forced into it. Yeah. It was just like the best place to sit in and like meditate, which makes sense. But anyways,
I
appreciate that a lot. Yeah. So about this time you started college, no? Or
yeah.
What were you doing? Did you club for 2 years? Like,
no really
clubbing.
Into the club.
Because you're right around those years when like clubbing was pretty big.
No, not into that whole club scene much ever. I think I was more into like the underground, like punk scene, and going to a lot of shows, and more like underground type cultures.
Live music gigs.
I had friends that were in bands. They dated, you know, band members at the time, so it was like a big part of my life at that time. Like really taking in the punk scene, really.
The artistic.
Yeah, and I think it was
DIY.
I kind of like pushed you to be more creative with like yourself too, like dressing and not caring so much of like the mainstream culture.
Yeah. And so then you started college.
started college, and then I actually started at Rio Hondo first because I didn't do well in high school. Like my last years, I was kind of like not caring about my grades, so I had to start community college first, and that's when I really met some pretty good instructors that were more culturally aware, and just very just woke, you know. And I know people don't like that word, but seriously woke, and they really exposed me to how you can, you know, really be a conscious artist and not just produce for the sake of producing, you know, pretty work. So
what years was this when you started college?
this was, okay, so
or when you started Rio Hondo?
98.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I graduated high school in 97, so about 98. And then, and then I studied abroad in France for a couple years. Oh, sorry.
Really?
6 months, not a couple years. A couple years later, I went to study abroad for about 6 months, and then I finished my bachelor's at Fullerton State in fine art, drawing and painting.
Let's go back a little bit to Rio Hondo. I'm just interested in, like, what were you painting in those first days, or those first, not days, but the first waves of classes that you took then?
Back then, I was just doing a series of self-portraits, a lot of self-portraits, and I think because I was doing so much soul-seeking, and it wasn't like this act of like, oh, I love myself so much, I want to keep painting myself, like a vanity thing. It was more just like, I need to figure out, like, because I was suffering a lot from like depression and anxiety, panic attacks, like I had it all, like the whole gamut, and I think that's probably what brought me to mental health. But yeah, I definitely went through a rough patch my first 20, like throughout my 20s, I would say, like most of my 20s. So I did a lot of self-portraits for the sake of like understanding, healing, getting into like what was happening to me.
And so then you went to France, and what did you study over there, or what did you do over there?
I did mostly...
What kind of trouble did you get into over there?
No troubles. I was too like, focused. I think I was able to really get into the classical art, seeing some of the beautiful, you know, historical paintings that we read about in textbooks, seeing them in person, spending time with them, really trying to like take that in as much as possible. And then I think definitely been influenced a lot from the classical work for a period where I did like the Angel series. You can see the references and the influence.
I'm wondering now, like at this age, you're in your early 20s and you're going to college and then to France. How are you supporting all this? Did you have like a job, or did you get financial aid? Or
financial aid, a lot of financial aid. Well, throughout the, you know, like the community college route, like I was able to get a lot of B waivers and not have to pay for any of that. But yeah, once I went to study abroad, and then Fullerton, definitely more grants, but mostly financial aid. And then, that was how that was funded. I was working too. I was always working. Like I've been working forever. Like I've always worked, studied, worked multiple jobs and studied.
Balanced everything. Yeah. Are you one of those people that has a calendar and keeps everything color coded? And
No, I'm not anal or.
I mean, I'm not saying anal. It's a skill that I wish I had.
That's a judgment. Sorry.
It's a skill that I wish I had, to like keep a schedule book, and like I've tried so many times buying myself a calendar and trying to keep a calendar, and it's just horrible. I can't do it. I just have to try to remember everything.
Yeah, I think my calendar is my brain. I don't. Yeah. I think now, because I have so many different things going on, I have like one Outlook calendar where I will plug in some certain things. But no, I never been like the type to keep everything on a. I just kind of remembered things.
Yeah. And so, came back home and you continued studying.
Yeah, got my bachelor's.
Were you doing shows by this time, or? I
didn't start like. I mean, I did little things here and there, but I think it wasn't until I graduated from Fullerton, 2004.
So let's go back then. So you came back from France and you started going to Fullerton.
Yeah, I was finishing my my last 2 years because I did all my, the prerequisites. And so I had 2 years to complete at Fullerton. So when I went to Fullerton, I did the 2 years. And then as soon as I graduated, it was right after graduation that summer, when I had my first show at Self-Help Graphics, the 13 y 13 show. I don't know if you remember that. It's funny because Manuel Lopez sent me the flyer recently. I'm like, I totally forgot about this. And so
What year was that?
that was 2004. Sorry,
Okay.
2004. So the same year I graduated, and after that, just shows started happening. And I think I got represented maybe a year after that.
Well, tell us a little bit about your first show, like coming up to it. What were you painting, and what were you thinking about, and what were you trying to show? And if you remember.
Yeah, I think it was pretty much my body of work for my graduate show, because we did like a 2-person graduate show. Yeah, it was fresh out of college, so I showed Christina Ochoa at the time my work, and she was probably like, who is this person? I never met this girl, because I didn't know her. I didn't know anything about the community. And
wait, are you talking about graduating from Fullerton or?
Fullerton, yes. Yeah,
okay.
2004. So I went there. This is when the old self-help was around on Gage.
Yeah.
So Christina was a director, and so she looked at my portfolio, and I just like walked in. I don't even know how I ended up there. Someone must have told me, go talk to her. She saw like my work, and she said, well, we have this 13 show coming up. It was 13 girls, 13 boys, you know, they're female, male. And so, but she's like, it's already packed. Like, we can't take anymore. We have the 13. I'm like, okay, why is she telling me? So then I left, and she reached out to me like maybe a few days later saying, you know what, someone just dropped out of the women's, the female group, so you're welcome to be a part. And that's where I connected with a lot of different artists for the first time. And from there, you know, I still talk to some of them. You know, Jaime Germs was in that show, Mitz, Andy. Yeah, a lot of artists. Shizu was in the show, so it was a lot of really good connections, and it was a great show. And I found my place. And I'm like, oh, this is where the community is. That's great. I didn't know about it before that, so it's good. So
how from then on, like, how do you start to like be involved in more things around the community and all that?
So after that, I think it was about a year, maybe 2 years after that. Just meeting people, different shows, connections. I remember, I don't know if you remember Ronald Lopez. He passed on, but R.I.P. brother. He was curating a show in the Santa Monica complex at 18th Street. And so he put me in a show, and then he happened to come by this gallery in Bergamont Station with the flyers for the show, and one of my images was on the flyer. And he showed it to the woman in Bergamont Station Gallery, and she's like, "Oh, like this is interesting. I would be interested to show this artist here." And it so happened that my friend from San Gabriel High was the one doing her computer work, digital work. Johnny Wong, yeah. So he was like, "Oh, that's my girl. That's my friend." And so he called me and he said, "Hey, you know, she wants to see your work." So that's how I started showing in Bergamont I was represented there for a few years.
What a trip, right?
Yeah, it was great. It was a very, very good experience. You know, I was so young. Like, I feel like I didn't.
How old are you then?
I was in my late 20s, like 27, 20. So I don't feel like I fully understood like how great of an opportunity that was to do a couple solos there. But unfortunately, when they were going to expand the train station, her gallery closed. So yeah. I didn't continue my relationship there. And
at one point, you went back to get your master's?
Yeah. I think it was when the gallery closed.
Oh, really? That was it?
Yeah.
You're like, back to school.
Yeah, I think I had just finished working with Raul.
Oh, yeah, that was actually the first time that I met you.
Yeah, Raul.
In person. I went to hear you guys talk about the mural. And
oh, okay.
I have some pictures of that day
Johnny
that I took.
Cochran?
Yeah, Johnny Cochran at middle school. That was a beautiful pieces that you guys put together.
Such a big project. Yeah, it was so overwhelming. So overwhelming.
But also, like, visually beautiful, like, overwhelming in the sense that it's you guys put a lot into that.
It was a major project.
Yeah. I wonder, like, how do you feel about, like, I mean, now I'm thinking about, like, you do this giant series of paintings all over the school, but you can't really go around showing it. You know, like you can't put it in galleries. People can't really go to the middle school and walk around it.
That's
true.
I
wonder how that.
I never really thought of it as like showing other. I think it was more for me about the kids getting inspired and seeing that, and the fact that we worked a lot on the murals during school hours. So we got to have a lot of interaction with students. You know, a lot of the kids would just hang out the entire time. I even had stuff stolen from me, but you know, it was part of the experience. So it was good. It was good. I think it was very humbling. You know, a lot of times like the frustrations of things just not working out the way they're supposed to, paint falling, just things happening. And so it was a humbling kind of like and we had the Buddhists that were coming to bless the murals, and we went to go see the Buddhist temple across the street. So there was a lot of like life lessons in that experience. And I
like
just
sink
thought,
or swim, like here's your mural project, here's the money.
I was so done, burnt out by the end of it. And then my gallery closed, I think that year. They were telling me they were going to close, so I knew I wasn't going to be showing with them anymore. And at that point, I was just like, okay, what do I do now? You know, like I've done this artist thing for too long. No, it wasn't that long at that point. You know, I was like, 30? But at the time, it just felt like it's been so much hard work. Like it can't always be this hard. Like I need to find something that's like more in tune to like my spirit, which is pretty like peaceful for the most part, because that was really hard. And I love the experience. I would do it again, like with, you know, more murals, But
just to touch on that a little bit, it's really important to know like when to like hit the brakes a little bit for yourself, right? And because I've gone through that in life too, where I'm like hustling, doing something else, and I'm like, I need to just chill and think about stuff for a while, work on one thing that's slower, and like you said, like where you can focus and like be mentally stable as well.
And more meditative, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important.
I agree.
And you don't learn that until you like smack into it, right? You're young, you're just chasing something, and then you smack into something that says, slow the fuck down. And
slow down. And also like, I think I was getting to a point where I'm like, I need a plan. Like there needs to be like more of a clear plan of what to do. Because even working with the gallery wasn't always like the greatest. I mean, it was a great experience, but the interactions sometimes felt kind of weird, you know, from like a Latina artist aspect. You know, she made some comments that were pretty, I thought, you know, racist and hurtful at the time. So insensitive, yes. So I think it was all just a lot for, you know, my 30-year-old self. In retrospect now, I feel like if these opportunities presented, I would handle them different. But when you're that young, everything just seems like too much, and so I need to step back for sure.
That's also a trip when you think about, man, I could have said this, or
when you look back,
yeah. But also like being young and not knowing like how much of your own like your life you can control. So maybe that I could imagine also like, you know, you felt like this woman was like in charge of your life in a way, and so whatever she says or
like kind of feeling owned. Like my work, you know, everything just felt like this obligation to impress, you know, which is weird to me. Like I'm making work to impress this person's clientele, which is, you know, it's important because you want your work to sell, but it's this weird like catch-22.
Yeah, that's awesome. So there's also the thing that you notice is like, am I doing work for her? Am I doing work for this audience? Or am I doing work that just comes out of me naturally?
Right.
Do you have any like moments where you've had breakthroughs or something like that where you were like, chale, I'm doing what I want? I
think having my other discipline now with the mental health, you know, as a healer in the arts and the therapy world, it allows me that freedom to not have to say yes to everything, you know, and be able to make decisions that feel good, that feel aligned with what I believe in, versus me feeling like I have to sell myself out to you know, I mean, I'm not saying I did, but it did feel like that at times. Like I would feel like, am I selling myself out because I'm doing things because I need to sell work to, you know, sustain my studio or whatever. So
let's go back a little bit then, or actually where we were heading was that when the gallery closed, you decided to go back to get your master's.
Well, yeah, I was kind of in a crossroads because I wanted to get a master's. So I had applied to MFA programs and to the art therapy program because I was like, oh, this is really interesting. There was reasons for that too. It wasn't just like I just kind of spontaneously or without thought jumped into the therapy program. But throughout the time when I was, working in my studio, it was in a building, the women's building in Chinatown in my 20s. And there was a lot of different artists that lived in that building, artists that lived in the building next, or not lived, but worked, so practically lived.
Some lived.
Yeah, some probably lived. Eloy Torres was in the other building. So a lot of them would come by pretty often to visit. And so I set up a little like tiendita with like coffee, but I would never sell it because I would feel bad. They're artists, like just come in. So we'd have these little chats on the couch, and then they would leave. They'd come in for an hour, visit, and I would feel like they needed to vent. And I thought, wow, there needs to be like a community space for artists to just have like a space that kind of promotes healing, that just non-judgmental, that just lets them, I don't know, release a lot of, whatever it is that the art world is bringing onto them. And so I thought about therapy a lot, like healing and healing artists. And that's kind of my interest when I first got into it. Just the idea of providing like therapy for artists, like free therapy or affordable therapy for artists. So when I did actually get into an MFA program. I think it was Claremont at that time. And then I got into LMU, and like it was one of the hardest, not the hardest, but one of the hardest decisions in my life, because I thought, okay, I can go this route, and potentially it will elevate my artistic career, or go this other route, and then just kind of also elevate my career, but in a different way. So, but I chose the other direction because I felt like, well, I'm going to continue to grow as an artist. I know how to do this. I'm going to continue to learn and push myself, but the other part I wouldn't be able to do on my own. So I chose the academic, theoretical, clinical work.
Yeah, that's harder to be self-taught at.
Yeah. And I think it was better for me too, because I needed the healing myself.
A little bit of all of that.
Yes.
Yeah, and so let's talk about that then. Let's talk about the process of the school and what has it done for you? What has it done for you as an artist, and not just that, but also as now you are a therapist?
I'm a licensed marital and family therapist, a registered art therapist, and yes. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like,
of course.
And it's Mental Health Awareness Month, so I thought it was really great that you chose this month for this reason, because it's important.
Well, that's cool, yeah.
Destigmatize.
That's exactly why I called you in.
Oh, okay, even better. I am so happy. Thank you. Yes.
So elaborate a little bit more on learning these things and how was it like? What was it that kept drawing you into this therapy side of art? Or explain it to us even, like...
What is art therapy?
Yeah, what is art therapy?
Yes. So I was mentioning before that I was doing self-portraits for quite a bit of time. And the self-portraits to me were kind of like this like self-therapy, there's like kind of like self-analysis or psychoanalysis, of the self through art. So it made sense to me because I thought it would deepen my understanding of my own art to go into a field that was about understanding like themes, hidden messages, the unconscious. So that's pretty much why I chose to go that route, besides like the passion I had to help others heal. Let me think. So art therapy. So to be an art therapist, you have to be accredited through accredited program. LMU happens to be one of the only ones in Southern California. There was another program that closed down, so right now it's just LMU. But you have to go through, it's a master's level course. You get your dual degree, so you become a therapist, like a marital and family therapist, and then you become an art therapist. And then many years later, you can become licensed if you do all the work and pass the test. So yeah, that's where I'm at now, working as a therapist and artist.
Walk me through like
a session?
Not just a session, but like let's make up a case, like a mock case.
Okay.
And like, how does all that, how do you start? How does someone approach an art therapist? And then how do they come to you, and what happens?
So anyone who goes to therapy can request an art therapist. So it depends if there is an art therapist available, but like if you go to therapy, you're going to do talk therapy where you sit on a couch like this or a table, whatever, and you talk. So instead of doing that in art therapy, you would sit and there'd be a number of art materials on the table. So the therapist might prompt you to make art. So for example, a lot of the work that was really important to me that I was working on was my work with dreamers and DACA recipients. And DACA recipients, and also unaccompanied minors. So they have a lot of trauma stories, unaccompanied minors. And so my sessions would be, having them come in, doing like a check-in with the art, so giving them the material and just, what's your experience like? What was it like? What are you experiencing in your body right now? So then they would do something, and then I can help them elaborate, help them identify some of the feelings they're having and processing that with them. And then we eventually get to the point months down the line where we go into their trauma. So through the art, they're constructing imagery and depictions of their trauma through the art. And then at the end of the sessions, like at the very end of therapy, we look at their entire body of work from the very beginning of therapy to the end. So I collect them all throughout. They don't take them home. And we kind of just talk about the phases of therapy. When you came in, this is where you're at, this is your trauma, this is all the process work we did, and then the conclusion, like where they're at now, what's their future planning. So it's pretty
How
deep.
long is that whole
trip? It depends on every case, but it could be anywhere from a day, depending on like how much a person's going to commit to therapy, to years of therapy.
Wow.
But a lot of the times, like especially in community mental health, which is what I've been doing for the past 12 years, there's a push to get people out so we can get more people in, and it's maybe like 6 months to 2 years of treatment.
Do you think that it's not good to get people out, that they should stay, like coming?
No, I think it's great that if people are ready to go. I don't think we should be like, okay, time to go, pushing people out. But I think it's good that people should practice.
Are there tools that they walk away with that they can continue to work with themselves?
Sure.
Yeah.
There's a constant reinforcement of like skill building. I do a lot of mindfulness in my therapies and like, relaxation skills.
Teaching them to meditate.
Meditation. I'm a little more eclectic with how I do therapy versus like maybe some other therapists.
And all these DACA and Dreamers, are they all referred to you? How do they come to you, or how do they find you, or is it an organization you work for that? Yeah,
my previous agency I was working at, they kind of just, because they saw how passionate I was, they made me like the person, who was handling all those or managing those cases. So we had a connection with DANCNG, this legal organization, this nonprofit that would refer to us. So they might need a client to go to therapy so they can then present to the courts that this client is, impacted by their trauma. And then I would have to write a letter to support of what's going on. But yeah, they wouldn't necessarily see the work they did. It would be more like the letter and then the proof that they're attending therapy. Yeah. But that was my last agency. So now I'm more like in supervisory type work.
Now you're the boss behind a desk.
I don't know. Maybe. I still do. I'm
you
still
can accept
doing,
the title. It's okay.
Okay.
All right.
I still do some group sessions at a shelter.
So to me, it's, again, like ridiculously impressive how you managed to have this difficult career. It's not something easy. Oh, I don't know how easy it is. I shouldn't say it's difficult, but it's, time management wise, you're working a full-time job at something that you have to be highly engaged in. It's not like you just go somewhere and move things around. This is something you really have to pay attention to, and then you still have time to create your own work. You're still making paintings.
Yep.
And you're still
I know,
participating in shows. Tell me about like your art practice now and how you manage to balance these two things.
I think just being very purposeful with my time I try to do things that fulfill me, whether it's riding my bike, which I do all the time. Like Leo and I ride multiple times.
We bump into each other all the time.
We see you all the time. Yeah, it's really cool to have that community, and then also just being around a lot of creative people, and being very selective with what I do with my time. So it has to be something that's going to fulfill some important part of me. And so with the work, like luckily because I've taken more of a supervisory role, I've been able to compartmentalize that kind of work and not put so much heart into that, because it's there, but it's not where I was like taking too much from me, where now I'm able to go back and pour more into my work. And yeah, I definitely see how it's influenced, like my new work, like what I've done with clients, how the body of work has changed a lot. It's getting tighter, it's getting more intricate. It's really interesting.
I want to just like bring up that, God, what is it called? The one about like, it's the Tijuana crossing with all the different things. And
Bueno, bonito,
every time that I look at that, that Bueno, bonito y barato. I was like, alliteration. That stuff is, I mean, that painting and a lot of the pieces that you do have all these little tiny, like little secrets in them too, or like, it's like a little treasure hunt if you want to like go through it.
Treasure hunt. I like that. Yeah, I think that is definitely, it's been interesting to me too, because I've never really been into doing too much like small detail type work. I've been used to, painting bigger and more loose, and but something where I'm at right now in my life has allowed me to be more like focused. So it's kind of cool. Like I'm very happy with like the fact that I can get there right now, and so I'm just taking advantage of it and just messing with more like detail and being more intricate with the work. And so I think that will probably be what I'm doing for a little while.
I find that also fascinating that because I'm kind of similar in that way, where like you're so in tune with what you're feeling. And I love how you said that wherever I'm at right now allows me to focus that much on this little thing, because there are times when you can do something like over and over and over, and there are times where you just can't. So I appreciate that you are also like highly aware that this is what I'm doing right now, and this is wherever I'm at right now is allowing me to focus on these little things, and maybe later or before I wasn't that detailed. I'm wondering now, like what are your choices, or how do you make your choices to like choose what to paint or what to put into what painting, or how does that come to you?
I work in series, so I have like maybe, I don't even know anymore. I have so many different series that I work in, maybe like 7. And I've been really interested in my prison series, and then my like the consumer series, the Bueno, Bonito, Barato, and then because I think it talks a lot about, that particular series talks a lot about how the commercialization, the commoditization, I can't even say that word, of our culture, how like there's this like push for like our culture being kind of exploited, very exploited, I would say, as far as like people are interested right now in what we're doing, what our culture is about. And that interests me. Like, I think it's kind of, there's two sides to that.
Always trying to figure out how to package something, or
yes,
how to sell their thing with our spin on it, which is weird.
Like what is like palatable,
like
what is
Bud Light
not.
Tajín. What the hell is that?
Exactly. Yes, everything becomes a commodity. There's the word I was looking for. So yes, that interests me. That series right now, the prison series, and also the labor series. I'm really.
Well, let's slow down a little bit. Tell me a little bit now about the prison series.
The prison series.
Is that the one with you have a painting that's like the lunch?
Yeah, I have the lunches. Yeah, I won't say here how I got those images because I don't want anyone to get in trouble. But someone very close to me, part of my family, is in prison, and want to represent and bring awareness to like just how unfair, unjust our legal system is. And then that particular piece, the food one, it kind of interests me because it reminds me, and it's actually the same company that delivers to schools. That delivers to prisons, and it looked like school meals.
Exact same.
Like, how do they feed grown-ass men this food? It's like ridiculous. And then, like just all of that, the discussion on that, and then the conversation with the other work. There's another piece I did about prison where it's like the yard, and again, just to bring some conversations around that. Yeah, that's all I can say about the prison pieces. I'll tell you more after.
And then your last series, you said?
There's the labor.
Tell us about
series.
that one.
I think just this like profound like respect and homage to laborers, and how hard that is and how much sacrifice is involved. I'm doing right now a biography piece about my dad. So starting from like his time in Honduras, coming here, being drafted to Vietnam, coming back, and then kind of being forced to have to work this very labor-intensive job, for so long. So I'm doing a piece about him right now, and that's going to be really important and interesting. And I want to just continue to highlight and pay homage to others that have similar stories. This constant like hustle,
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, that's pretty cool that he got like the UPS job like way back then, because I'm sure that's what allowed him to buy a house in San Gabriel Valley and all that. So that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And plus, he's a veteran, so that
sponsored by UPS.
And he's a veteran too, so that helps a lot too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. What about like your use of color? What do you think inspires that, or were you influenced by another artist, or in general? You just like color?
I like a lot of color. I like anything that has, vibrant colors, like from this tapestry. I don't know if you can all see this, but it's really beautiful. So tapestries from like, indigenous weaving from, I look at a lot of like designers or fabric designers from India. There's one, Anish Arora, I think that's how you say his name. He's one of my favorite textile designers, and I'm just so impressed with all the layering of colors and how they can play together so beautifully, even though like you would think they're so off, like on opposite ends of the spectrum. So that, and what else? Yeah, mostly just like the tapestries from other countries. And
your scenes are colorful, so maybe it's just that's what the scene is, right?
Yeah, definitely can. And I like if you look at a bush, you see like a green bush, and all you look at is the bush. I'm thinking of like this tree I see in the bathroom window at my home, and every time I see it, I just trip out how like it's all green, but like if you really, really look at it, and then you start seeing like hundreds of shades of green. I think it's just so beautiful. And I think that's kind of what I get inspired by, just how like something so mundane or very like you drive past it or walk past it every day, you don't even notice it. But if you really look, and it goes back to us looking, being aware, that takes you to a different experience.
What kind of things are you looking at now? Speaking of looking.
For inspiration? Plants, nature, bike rides are really fun. Do those like multiple times a week. Leo and I go on this path in like North Hollywood, and we call it Hamsterdam, because people
just go to smoke weed.
Not even that. Like they do everything.
Wow.
But like we just be riding, and I just trip out, and I think, wow, like this is so interesting. Like how it's so openly accepted to do in this one bike path. And there's just so much, I draw so much inspiration from all the different things that happen there, from people being very generous to leaving clothes, leaving shoes, leaving food, leaving just random stuff. And then you have the people who, are using, who I just wonder, like, what's their story? Like, how'd they get here? And just really trippy things that happen. I think that's kind of where I take in a lot of information of, like, how we can all live in the same space or share the same space, but everyone's having such a different experience in that space.
I like how you look at things. I'm wondering now, like, is there like one specific advice that you can give to like, in general, artists, like, or is there like a go-to like thing that you think maybe artists don't think about that they should focus on for their own like
wellness?
Wellness, yes.
I would say try therapy. I mean, I know there's a lot of stigma around it, and maybe people think like, oh, I don't really need it. It doesn't work for me. But find someone that does work, because there's so much you can gain from it. A non-biased, like, just a person to feed ideas off of. I think it would be really helpful for people to even understand their own work by being able to talk to someone doesn't have an agenda to sell or to criticize or to break your work apart. It's more just like, just talk to me,
Yeah.
Sometimes you need that.
When I was in my, I'm going to say early 20s, I was an interpreter in a psychologist office.
That's so interesting.
And so I sat inside session after session, translating from English to Spanish, back and forth. And there was some, deep stuff in there. But what I took away from that was I learned also, I took some tools out of there that I learned that I could use. And one of the things that I love to tell people that like are starting with like to hit a depression or can't seem to get out is like walk. Because that's what
so true.
This therapist would assign people. It's like, you're going to walk. And I want you to tell me how many blocks you walked. And, this week you're going to walk 10 minutes. Next week, 20 minutes or whatever. But that's where I first learned that endorphins make you happy. And,
Yes.
that walk was like something. So, yeah, that's one of the reasons why I ride my bike a lot and walk a lot. And it's just
so simple, too.
a little
and
simple
free.
tool.
It's free to walk.
There was one case who, of course, we're not going to say the names or anything, but I like to share the story with people, is that the therapist, he was really depressed, and she assigned him to smile.
No, that's a really
I
good
want you to go
therapy.
home and look in the mirror and smile. The next week, he came back giddy.
I like that you were just like excited to see what would happen next.
Yeah,
in your sessions.
and I mean, for me, learning too and seeing all this, process
Very
was.
informative.
Yeah, I mean, I was in it as much as they were, and it was just that's where I learned, the muscles that make you smile, and just like repeating something like that. So, anyways, yeah, like little simple tiny tools.
That's a good tip right there for artists. Laughing, laughter is so healing. People do laugh therapy all the time.
Yeah, and I love that the art as therapy, because like I sketch all the time, even though I don't consider myself somebody that can actually draw the human figure, but it's therapy for me. Like it's literally therapy just to put the pen down. I call it line therapy, and it's just like to put the pencil down and just like let everything flow out of that in that moment is something that I ascribe to. And yeah, a long time ago, I was in a theater workshop. I was teaching a theater workshop with some kids at the YMCA in Hollywood. And this was not my activity, but somebody else did this activity where they had all these kids. Well, they were teenagers, at-risk youth. They had them all lie down on a big sheet of paper and draw their outline.
Oh, I remember
each one of them.
Exercise.
And then inside, like you were saying, like we talked about, what do you feel here? What do you feel in this part of your body? And so they filled like their bodies with like colors and words and stuff too.
Yeah.
That was like, I didn't even know it was art therapy then, but like now I'm putting it together. Like that was some art therapy going on there. Yeah.
Sometimes it's again another simple exercise, but you might not even put colors to whatever you're feeling. And it just brings you another level of awareness when like, oh, I didn't realize that all that was happening in my head or in my chest cavity or my stomach. So it's good. It's a good awareness to know what's happening inside of you through the art.
Yeah, I love that. So what do you have like a 5-year plan now? Like, what do you see in the future? Like, are you working more on like trying to, be a painter or more the other, or is there a balance, or I don't know. Just trying to see what does the future hold? Another name change?
Name change. No, I think I think definitely I am very focused on putting more focus on my art, craft, and see where that takes me. I think I'm at that place where I need to make that deviation, which I kind of have by changing my roles in the workplace, so where I have more time, I have more flexibility. So yeah, my mind is now like get back to the having a solid body of works in case like a solo show were to present. I'm working on a couple pieces for a show coming up in Amsterdam through ThinkSpace that next month, and so I just really want to keep pushing my work and just see where where it goes, where it takes me. Yeah, and trust in the process.
Trust in the process. I love that. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would like to bring up? Anything you'd like to mention? Any shows coming up or anything at all?
Just that this was really interesting because like I'm so used to being the one to interviews, like clients. I sit across people all the time and I'm asking questions. So it's unique to be on the opposite end. So I'm feeling like I should be asking him more. I should be asking him about that situation that he just brought up. So yeah, that's the only thing like I would say is that's an interesting.
You can ask me.
Oh, okay. So I was curious when you were saying about how like with your work, how like you were getting into the intricacies of your work. How does that look like? Because you're primarily a photographer.
Yeah.
So how does that look like in the photo?
Do you mean like when your
subject matter, does it change?
So I think what I was saying was that just trying to compare that sometimes you just feel like doing something like intensely because your body and your mind, or I guess let's put it like this. Sometimes my work is pretty focused and sometimes it's not. Sometimes I know exactly what I'm going to shoot and how I'm going to shoot it. And sometimes my brain is in a fog. And so I don't really know what those details are. And I just go around shooting a bunch of stuff. And then I come home and then I, hopefully later I'll look through it and it'll make some kind of sense. It doesn't always make sense. I guess if you were a painter, you would just kind of like paint stuff and then look at it later and be like, I don't like this or not. It's when I shoot and I shoot a lot, like just walk around and shoot or go to events and shoot and all that. It's not always, some of it is kind of like casting a net and then looking through stuff and hoping that, you catch some gold in there. It's like when I put together my first book, it was 100 pictures, but at that time I had close to 100,000 images.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I was going to say 1,000. Wow, that's a lot.
Like 100,000, but a lot of it is trash. A lot of it is edited out. Are
you the only person that helped edit it, or did you have someone
No, I had somebody else help me edit. I got it down to 400.
Oh, wow.
And then somebody else helped me get it down to 100.
Wow. Yeah. That's impressive.
Yeah, so
I hope we see a retrospect of your work sometime so we can see it all.
But basically, I was just agreeing with because this is something that I've been telling people lately. Like, they're like, "Why are you doing this podcast and not, your photography anymore?" Like, my brain doesn't have that space right now. It just doesn't have that space right now. It doesn't have that, and I also feel like I need to learn more. And I learned from you guys. I learned from every single person that sits there and like talks to me about what your. And I'm naturally this way. Like, I'm naturally like asking questions all the time. Yeah. I'm naturally, because I want to learn, And so I really have gained a lot from this, and I know that eventually, through osmosis, hopefully, I will become a better artist.
No, it is. I mean, there's something in therapy called the parallel process, where I'm providing treatment for a client. But in that treatment, I'm also getting, my own mental health needs met. So the parallel process is big in a lot of things. I think, like you're saying, what you're taking in, this is where your art form is right now.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you're not a photographer. It just means that you're taking in information in a different way to go back to it at some point.
And it's because different parts of the brain work at different times better. And I was kind of like going through a health thing too. I think that's what first stopped me from like really walking around a lot and shooting a lot. And I didn't know it at the time, but now I've gotten to see a doctor and I'm fine. But I think that's what kind of also pushed me into a separate thing. And I didn't know it, but my brain was just not doing that thing anymore. It was just doing something else. So I was really trying to comment on how well in tune you are with your body, because I feel like I am too. Like I'm usually like really in tune with my body and my mind and my heart and how the way things feel. You know, I try to just follow like
that's good.
what my body tells me.
Like
so,
trusting yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's another. I have all these advices for artists, but this is another good point because I think it's important for artists to feel okay with that, like not beat themselves up if they're not where they need to be in that moment. You know, I think a lot of artists, they get into severe depression where they can't like come out of it. And I mean, I know so many artists that are in like severe depression right at the moment. And I think because you feel like you, for some reason, you're forcing yourself to do something that your body's telling you can't do right now. And that's okay. So being like okay with that, I think is important. To do something else that's creative, like find another outlet. And that's just as like important.
And I think that kind of goes back to like the whole like painting because you have to paint, you know, painting because you have to, painting a certain thing because you want it to sell, or it goes back to that where like maybe your body wants to draw or paint something else, but you're like, damn it, I have to finish that thing. And that's, I think, why sometimes people procrastinate, because like they don't really want to do that thing, and you start to draw something else. A friend calls you to make them a flyer, and you make the flyer instead of working on the piece you're supposed to make. But anyways, I'm like rambling now.
Oh, it's so true.
Well.
Oh, thank you. I like the dual conversation. It's really always been awkward for me to be on the spot, so it's nice to have thank you for being open to having some dialogue back.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Any other questions?
Well, like I was going to ask about how this has been for you, but you did answer that, like how it's been informing you a lot.
Yeah.
Do you ever walk away feeling like, I wish I would have asked this question, or...
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only 1 hour, and it's impossible to get. It's impossible to get the entire person in 1 hour. And sometimes, I aim to try to like get you to open up at least twice, you know, or, you know, because a lot of it is just giving information. But then we get to a point where like you do share something that's important. You do share something that people can walk away with and remember. And I mean, I don't know if you've watched some of the early ones. That's when I was like a little, like you can't tell, but I was a little sick, and I would just focus a lot. I would use so much physical and mental energy just to like pay attention and be in the moment. But now I'm better, and I feel more relaxed, and I feel like I could have like just a chill conversation without being really worried about the entire thing. But I've also gone back and listened to one actually, and I felt like it was more intense. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But that's just where I was then, and like right now I'm in a different place. So that's the same thing where it's like right now I'm in more of a loose mode, and so like these past I would say like the past 15 episodes have been a lot more chill, a lot more relaxed, not so like
taxing.
Yeah. But
that's good. That's a good place to be. Right?
But I am learning a lot, and also like you explained it to me with the parallel universe. What is it?
Process. The parallel process. The
parallel process is a real thing because
definitely.
I love it. It's also something. When you give, right, you feel like this whole like you've also received, and so it's I appreciate those words.
It's a very true phenomenon.
Yeah.
For sure.
So we're at the point now where I have to tell you that we have a question that we ask everybody at the end of each episode.
Okay.
And it's a vague question. We only ask that you try to answer in one sentence. Mm-hmm. And you can answer in any way you want. Melly Trochez, how do you do it?
Okay. I think it's important for me to remember to live in gratitude, like immense gratitude, and be grateful. Like, oh, I just said gratitude. Hold on, could I do this one again? Well, I think the importance of like being able to live in the immense gratitude and just being present and not taking things for granted. I think that's the most important thing, not taking things for granted.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time.
I appreciate your time.
And we'll see you guys next week.